Here we go. What is up, guys? This is the oh damn, we'll start over. No problem. What's up, guys? This is Real Estate with K&J. I'm Kyle. He's Justin, and today we have a special guest from Midland Title, Maggie Mahoney. Hello, how are you?
Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
We are working our way through our buyer series here. This is part 4, the last part. And what Midland does is they are a title company. And for a lot of people, they don't really know what a title company does, especially first-time home buyers. So we're going to get into all that, kind of what to expect on closing day and just some of the ins and outs and things that you can do to make life a little easier for yourself and us. So let's get it.
Yeah. So, Maggie, if you want to start off by telling everyone who you are, what you do exactly, what's your role at Midland, and then we'll just dive into what exactly a title company does.
Sounds good. So my name's Maggie Mahoney. I'm with Midland Title. Been at Midland it'll be 11 years in June. Locally owned and operated, got 3 offices around town, Maumee, downtown, and Executive Parkway. We're a very small portion of the buying and selling process. But if you happen to come across a situation that I'll explain, we could be the most important piece if you have someone knocking on your door where they say that they own your house, whereas you are under the assumption that you own it. So anyways, what we do is it's a one-time insurance policy that is dictated by the purchase contract that the seller pays for the buyer. That policy is based upon the purchase price of the house. It's a state cost or a state regulated cost. So that's not anything that we can change or dictate. But what we do is that we go back close to the beginning of time to make sure that the chain of title, meaning that Justin Annis sold it to Maggie. Whoop. I had a phone call coming in. Sorry. Did that just cut out? Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
Pretend it didn't happen. It's like when you hit a pothole and it makes that scary noise, like, oh my God, is my car dead?
I know.
Just keep going.
Yep.
Like blocking my view or whatnot. But anyways, making sure that Justin Annis sold it to Maggie Mahoney. Maggie Mahoney sold it to Kyle Russell. Kyle Russell sold it to John Mangus, and making sure that chain of title is correct. So sometimes there's a fault in the title, whereas there could have been a forged deed or someone's spouse didn't sign the deed. Here in Toledo and Ohio, the spouse has to release dower rights when they sell a property. So, and when you buy a property, if there's a mortgage, I'm kind of going all over the place, but I'll connect it here in a second.
Yeah,
so with the dower rights and whatnot, if I was married, my spouse has legal interest in the property. So that means they would need to sign the deed if I was selling a property. When you're buying a property, if I'm married, my spouse will have to sign their mortgage or sign the mortgage, even if you're not taking title, because they have interest in that property as well. So what we do is we make sure that the chain of title is correct to make sure that my spouse signed off on the deed if I was selling or signed the mortgage if I was purchasing, and vice versa. If there's a defect in that chain of title, that's something that we work on in the back end of things, because the seller is purchasing this insurance for the buyer. So once the buyer owns this home, you know that this is your home. You're not worried about what happened 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and someone's coming to knock on your door and saying, hey, I have rights to this home. So we make sure that the chain of title, and also not only the chain of title, but boundary line disputes with your neighbors, any outstanding liens on the property. Sometimes people don't think that things follow them. I mean, there's certain liens that attach to a person or the property itself. So a child support lien, if you haven't been paying your taxes, things like that follow you. And if you're selling a property and even buying a property, that will come up at some point. And our job is to make sure that all of those are taken care of by the time closing happens, so the buyer's walking away with clear title. I don't know if that makes sense, if I connected all the dots there correctly or.
Oh, no, you did a great job explaining it. And yeah, a title company definitely plays a very important role. Like you said, it may not be like a big portion or a big role, but I mean, making sure they have clear title, making sure that the house that you're buying is good, and that way it gives you peace of mind after closing. Super important for sure.
And there's so many great title companies around Toledo. So all of us do the exact same thing. It's just a matter of who you prefer to work with, or who you trust working with. If they're for any transaction that includes a lender, you have to have a title policy. So you're always going to be working with a title company. Sometimes people don't use a title company for cash transactions, but a lot of the times, I shouldn't even say a lot of the times, sometimes when that happens, things get missed, or you quit claim it to someone and then you call the title company in the end and you're like, we should have had a title policy. We should have gone through a title company in the beginning. This is what happened. And then we're, fixing the mistakes and whatnot. So, but not only do we do that, that's just the title or the title insurance portion of it. We do everything from starting the order, obviously searching the property, and searching the buyers and sellers. And then we also issue title work, which goes out to all the real estate parties involved, lender, attorneys, real estate agents. We schedule the closings, we process on the back end. So we work with the lenders and the agents for your settlement statements issued prior to closing. So closing only takes about an hour, but there's a lot of time that goes into it in the back end of things in order for you to come and sign your documents for that 1 hour. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. So for example, we were talking before we started that I just got a house under contract and we're going to use you guys for the title work. So step one, we're under contract.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, what are you telling your buyers? Hey, where do we go next as far as title goes?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. You're fine.
No, Justin, go ahead. You're fine.
For sure. So step one, so you said you got them under contract. In terms of title, you want to make sure that the title company has purchase agreement, the disclosures, and everything that they need, so that way they can start doing their due diligence and diving into, pulling to see if there are liens, making sure the title is good and clear, and so on and so forth.
So while we're going through this process, we'll say something I feel like that's kind of common. Back taxes pop up. We'll say, how, as a buyer, how does or doesn't that affect me and why?
So for the back taxes, that would come up on our title work, and that would be, the seller would have to pay for that at closing.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily affect the buyer. What it would affect the buyer is if there's a dispute and they don't want to pay these taxes, or they're not aware of them and want to dispute them, it might elongate the closing date or the contract date for closing. But no, that would just be, the seller would have to pay for those to make them right by the time that closing happens. So, or paid out of their proceeds.
And that kind of goes back to what you're talking about as far as, free and clear. We're making sure that there's nothing hanging over this house when people get their keys, whether it's that, or we'll go back to our hot water tank thing that we were talking about in the last podcast with JP. Hot water tank gets put in and Justin didn't get paid for it. He was told he was gonna, and he just never did. That's another kind of thing that will pop up on a lien, because you don't want this guy that you've never met knocking on your door and saying, hey, you owe me, $1,500 to $2,000 for this work. And you're like, dude, I've never met you in my life. Why are you at my house?
I'll also say that too is, the liens that we're finding are only when it's recorded with the county. So something like that, if you paid a guy on the side and you didn't pay a guy on the side, we're not going to find that unless it's been recorded with the county or the courts. Okay. So the recordable documents that we're searching through the court system and the government center for transactions. So, but if he did place a lien against you, in the small claims court or whatnot, we would find that, and that would need to get settled at closing. But someone just random, we can't, obviously there's no,
don't trust that guy.
So when we're doing this, it's only recorded documents with the county.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some common ones that I guess you guys, it's like typically like,
common liens?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your most common are probably either like a federal tax lien, maybe like like a small business owner or whatnot. He's got a small business or she's got a small business, and it's popping up that it might not be attached to them as the person, but it was attached to the property. And so they're thinking that, they're purchasing it in a different entity or whatnot, that they're fine, but it's coming up that their taxes haven't been paid for, whatever's attached to the property or themselves.
Right.
Another would be, we do get a lot of child support ones. I think that the one that there's a lot of divorces and things like that gets a little hairy at times.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, actually, I had one a couple of years ago. I was helping the girls schedule, and I called the gentleman. He was selling, called him to schedule his sale. And, I'm calling and asking for deed purposes, are you single or married? Because we obviously have to prepare the deed to make sure the chain of title is correct, whatever. And he was like, well, I'm married. I said, okay, well, your spouse is going to need to come in to sign the deed. He said, oh, no, I'm single. It's like, well, that's not how it works. You're married. And he was like, I'm married, but my spouse is in France. Well, it's always, for even just common knowledge for everyone, when you're doing these purchase contracts, it is really great information as a title company to have you down whether your client is single or married on the purchase contract, just for us, so we can have the title work done, better beforehand. But anyways, we had to track his soon to be ex-wife down in France. They ended up being, they were not citizens of the United States. So then that all came into play, and closing, which was a cash deal, it was a 2-week contract, ended up being, I think, close to 3 months, because
Wow.
track her down, and then there were certain stamps she had to get, whatever. It was crazy. So yeah, all
Sounds
parties.
like it.
Yeah, it was a little.
Oh man, it sounds like a headache, especially in France, because it's like that's so far away.
Yeah.
That's a journey.
Yeah, in France, there's certain things that you have to go through in order for, like, it's not necessarily just a notary. It's called an apostille or an apostille.
Yeah.
It's a stamp that you have to get, and they had to set up a meeting at the consulate, and then whatever. She lived in a small village in France, and it took forever. So
that is way better than my horror story.
Yeah, right.
Same
here. What's your horror story, Kyle?
Oh man, we're sitting at the closing table, and it's not nearly as exciting, trust me. And we're going through all the documents, and they pass everything over, and they ask pretty standard questions like, hey, is everything on here correct as far as like the address, your name, phone number, and things like that. And in Alexandra turned into an Alexandria, so that was all messed up. And then they also didn't have a check. It was after 5 o'clock, and they lived in Custer, and they had a small bank that was obviously closed. So it wasn't nearly as bad or as exciting as that. We pretty much got it resolved the next day.
Yeah, that's like similar to my horror story. I just had one of my sellers, we went to go sell their house, and we found out that when they bought it back, I think in like 99, their mortgage was never recorded. So it was like a day before closing, and it was just an all-on rush. We had to track down their old file. The mortgage company ended up going out of business. We had to coordinate with the other title company that they previously closed at. And it was just a whole scenario. But after, like 2 days, had to get closing extended, but ended up coming to an agreement, get on that resolved, and everything was good. But yeah, not nearly as interesting as chasing down someone in France.
No, but those are horror stories, because your clients are coming to closing thinking that they're going to walk away with the keys or walk away with their check, and then it doesn't happen, and there's further work to do. It does not happen all the time, but when it does, it's disappointing for all parties involved, for sure. So
oh yeah, that's why it's nice to have a great team involved, like what me and Kyle been talking about the past 3 episodes, having a great team on your side, because if something like that does happen, especially towards the back end after we get through the appraisal and everything, you want to make sure you have people who can react quickly and still try to keep the time frame, on track. So you want to make sure you're still closing on time and so on and so forth. So having a good team definitely makes a world of difference.
We've got a couple girls in our office who work on the back end of things, and they're literally like little sleuths. All they do is look at the court docs and look up, divorces and, unfortunately deaths and things like that to see and look at all the trust documents. And, they're always in the clerk of courts looking through all the court docs and stuff like that. And for us, you guys probably don't get it until, unfortunately, it comes to a point where we have to get the real estate agents involved. But we try on our end to keep you guys out of it as much as you can, so you can focus on the transaction at hand, so we can handle the stuff that we can. But at some point, we've got to get you guys involved if we can't get it handled, or we need to track someone else down, or we think that there's going to be a closing delay or whatnot. So that's when we would normally contact you guys and say, hey, this is what's going on, giving you a heads up in case closing's delayed, notify your clients and whatnot. So.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yep. Right team and everything. So when you guys are kind of working with everyone, what are you looking for as far as just kind of explain what you guys do with like lenders and things like that, as far as like with buyers, just so that you kind of show like, hey, this whole team, all this stuff is kind of happening in the background as we move toward, the finish line.
Yeah. So you won't get much correspondence from us until, after the appraisal, and we're looking for that clear to close and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But as that initial purchase contract is sent to us, we open up an order, start getting title work ready right away, which will then get issued to the lender. The lender will send us their information, such as loan amount, their loan number, obviously their contact information and things like that. And then after the title work's been issued, when we're waiting on a clear to close, we work with the lender on the back end for our closing costs, as well as the closing costs of the lender, any stipulations in the contract, seller concessions, things like that. We're obviously inputting into what is called a settlement statement, which is the breakdown of all the fees. And so we go back and forth with the lender. Once we have that settlement statement ready to go, that closing disclosure is sent out to the buyers a couple days ahead of time, and then we're ready to schedule the closing. So it's funny because, I always try to tell people, even new agents and whatnot, I'm like, as soon as you get the initial order started, you're not going to hear from us. You're going to get the title work, and then it's going to seem like there's a grace period where you don't hear from us. Then all of a sudden it's like, bam, where it's like, go. And that's kind of how it happens. So, we are doing our job behind the scenes. It's just that we don't need to correspond with you every day. So.
Yeah.
I don't know the question of what buyers can expect, but that's really what we do. I mean, and in regards to what we need up front from you guys, like for buyers or sellers or whatnot, it's really just contact information, phone numbers. If someone is married or has a spouse, we need to know that. If someone's single and wants to take title with another person, we need to know that, so we can check with the lender to make sure that's going to be okay. Things of that nature. In our line of business, more information, the better. So. Right.
I was sitting having lunch with a guy the other day, and a friend of mine, and we hadn't talked in some years, and I'm telling him the ins and outs of what I do on a daily basis. And he's like, man, I'm just an IT guy. I'm not really doing a whole lot. What you do is super, sounds super tough. And I'm like, maybe when you start to do it every day, it starts to like snap, but like that stuff, like the title work, like it's just all this stuff that goes into it. It seems like, and having to know the ins and outs of it, where, when you hear like a real professional talk about what they do, it's really cool to see. It's like, oh yeah, that, like, I'm just imagining you were talking about the women in your office. They're like sleuths. I'm sure that they have it down pat, and they're just ready to go.
Yeah.
They have such an awesome system.
I could never do their job. Like,
sure.
I could never
Seems so tedious. So tedious.
Yes. And it's got to be perfect. It's a perfectionist job. So I look at them, I'm very ADD, and I'm a people person. Like, I could not be at the computer all day doing what they do. So I give them so many props. All of our staff here, I'm like, there's a reason why I'm a salesperson, and there's a reason why you guys are good with numbers, because I could never do your job ever.
Right.
Yeah.
The right team. I mean, we keep talking about it. Get the right people behind you. So I guess what if there was like a hiccup, we'll say like common, I mean, you talked about some of the common liens, but like, is it just little silly things like, we were talking about like a misspelled name or here and there, or is there anything else you can kind of think of off the top of your head?
No, kind of like Justin said, like with that open mortgage or whatnot, like there's
Mhm.
some that, I mean, everyone makes mistakes. The reason why you're getting in an insurance policy with us is that it's a one-time cost to the seller for the buyer, but if there was ever a claim, we would take care of that claim. And we'd work with our underwriters as to how much the claim is and whatnot, and we would pay for it. But similar to Justin's situation with that mortgage that was opened, we do make mistakes. There's been prior owner mortgages that we've missed. Not necessarily an open mortgage, but a prior owner mortgage that was never released by the bank. There's been so much where these large corporations have been bought and sold and whatnot. And so sometimes it's hard to, the filing system gets a little messy and we miss something. In a situation like that, it would need to be brought to our attention. Normally it's the real estate agent that's like, hey, something's squirrely, and it normally doesn't get caught until the next closing because, the next title company would see like, hey, that show that we're like, this lien's never been released. How did you guys get through your closing without having that, lien like not released or whatnot? And so that's normally how we'd find out the mistake is in a situation like that. So we hate that phone call, but it happens. It happens to everyone across the board. So, but
I'll use myself as an example on this one.
That's our risk.
One of my first deals ever, we had negotiated a home warranty into it, pretty common stuff. And me being as green as I was, I didn't see that it wasn't on the closing disclosure. I'm sitting there freaking out. I thought, everything was going to catch on fire. It was the end of the world. And, once we got past a certain point and the seller was kind of she got her check and she was gone. So we end up splitting it, but that's the kind of the thing. I mean, it's for a lot of these first time home buyers, this is usually the biggest transaction of their lives to this point. So make sure you're reviewing your documents because like you were saying, human are people too, or vice versa. People are human too. So everybody's bound for a mistake here and there. It's inevitable, but so just make sure you're looking over all your stuff.
And it's so important to have a good lender, someone who's going to go over your costs with you prior to closing, have any questions. And obviously at the closing table, we walk through every step of the process, every fee that you've probably already seen. We're going to go through it with you again, but you should be minding your P's and Q's up to the closing table to make sure that, everything looks good. And if you're someone who is nervous about the buying process or, you want another person to overlook it, an attorney is always a good suggestion too, to make sure that, the purchase contract's being, relayed correctly. Relayed, it's not the word I'm looking for, but relayed correctly to us and whatnot. So.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Definitely agree on that. And, when people, and anyone who's watching this, and even if you're going through the home buying process, once you do get that settlement statement, double check numbers, have your agent double check numbers because you don't want to miss anything. Because once closing happens, it's kind of everyone parts ways and, kind of it, so.
Definitely.
My wallet felt my mistake. So.
Checking that settlement twice now, huh?
Oh yeah. It's
checking it every single time. Now it's like something.
Oh yeah. Well, it's one of those lessons. It's like, oh, whatever. And then once it starts affecting your wallet, you're like, whoops.
Right.
Then, if you got, anyone who's a new buyer, you're pre-approved or you've wrote a contract on a house and it's just got accepted and you're kind of looking for an idea of like what your title costs would be or whatnot, you can always give me a call. We can give you a breakdown of what your title costs would be roughly. Obviously they're subject to change depending on the closing date, but any value that we can provide to your clients, whether that's just a phone call to ease them, to make sure that, you're in the right hands, everything's going to get taken care of. We're more than happy to help in any way. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Where are you at? Just a weird question from my mild experience. Where are you at with like if a lender comes in like, hey, I got this, don't worry. And then they do the closing for you.
Oh, we don't. That doesn't bother us at all.
No, I just never really knew, because I don't know if it's like, oh, it's closing day, stand back, here we go. And then they come in like, hey, let us take care of it. You're just like, oh, okay, just step on my shoes.
No, you know what? That doesn't bother us at all because in the end, like I said, we're small potatoes compared to you guys. Your guys' business is referral business, just like it is the lenders. So, the lender doing their closing and, providing some value to their clients and like creating that rapport and whatnot at the closing table, by all means, that does not offend us at all. So, yeah, not at all.
I've never had that happen. I never had a lender close on it. No.
Yeah, there's quite a few actually in town who they prefer to do their own things.
Yeah. I've had that. That's like I tell you, Justin, the guy Vince that I work with at Benchmark, he's pretty awesome that way. Vince Lyons.
Yes.
Oh, that's what he does. He does.
That's my guy,
closings.
man. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. It's a referral business for you guys. He wants to get that referral or whatnot, just like you guys do. So it's just an added touch at closing for him to, solidify. We put all these numbers together, our package. Like this is my job. So yeah, by all means.
Awesome. Let's get one more horror story other than France. If you got one more, just because they're fun for us. It makes mine look like such, so minuscule in the grand scheme of things.
I only had that one off the top of my head, but not a horror story, but with COVID and things like that, just this one's kind of funny. Not a horror story or anything like that, but just with COVID, things have been so weird. And like, we're doing drive-by closings or, going out to people's cars to closings. Well, a few months back, my dad, who I actually work with here at Midland as well, he had to do a closing in an RV, and that was kind of funny. But they were really nervous about COVID, so they set up I'm out in our mommy office, so they set up a table and chairs out in the parking lot, and they did a closing outside, which whatever worked. Kind of funny.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
that'd be fun. You just drive by, you just see like, what the heck is going on over there? It's like, man, it's cold.
Got it up in the grass and whatnot, but got to do what you got to do. Whatever. So not necessarily, but yeah,
that's awesome.
That was one that I'll forever because I was really in the trenches with that one. I was working on that every day. So
that's so good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Total do that to us. Well, cool. Do you have anything else you want to kind of leave for our buyers here or anything like that?
Oh my gosh. No, good luck and your search.
Literally, that's the biggest one in this market. Good luck.
Good luck in your search. You're in good hands with K and J. No, good luck and have fun in the process. It's such a big investment. It's exciting. So enjoy the ride. And always you can call me if you need anything. I don't know what else to say.
That's it. That's perfect.
Anything else?
Literally perfect.
Justin, any final thoughts on title work with how it kind of pertains to all this?
No final thoughts. Just like Maggie said, if you have questions or if you want to know what the cost would be on the title end of things, feel free to reach out. And of course, they'd be more than happy to help you. And even if you ask us, we can have them reach out to you, vice versa. We can make it happen. So that way, everyone and anyone has a clear understanding and knows what to expect.
For sure.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the flexibility.
Thanks, Maggie.
I'm nervous.
That's okay. It was a lot of fun. Those stories are awesome. They're so much better than mine. So.
Oh yeah.
Thanks. Well, and now I'm late because I'm on the spot and I was trying to think of some today. I'm that's the only one that stuck out in my head. So if I think of any others, I'll let you guys know. But I get nervous when I'm on camera or whatnot. So sorry, I don't have more for you.
Oh no, you're fine. It's perfect.
There's a reason we're both wearing hats. So
literally.
I know. I missed the memo. I should have grabbed mine out of my car.
No, I looked in the mirror before we started. I'm like, today's another hat day.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I woke up this morning. I just accepted it. It's happening.
Well, you guys are so sweet. Thank you so much for thinking of me to have me on here today. I hope I wasn't too confusing and spread some knowledge. I don't know.
No, I think honestly, you're very insightful, and thank you again for coming on.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. All right. Well, have a good afternoon. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thanks again.
Yep.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Maggie.
Thanks for listening.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.